Okay, so we're lined up here for the Google Hangout about the 70.3 Austin race, and we are waiting for our viewers to sign up. This is a bit of a test run using this technology, so we're going to see how we do on this first run through. One of the things that's also going to happen is that my wife is going to be standing right over there, and she is going to be periscoping at the same time, and she'll be handling some of the Q and A from the periscope. The idea is to try to maximize our time and use this opportunity to learn some of this new technology for how to interface with athletes regarding triathlon. So we're waiting. She is trying to join right now. And okay, so it's okay. You can speak up. We don't mind. We're trying to figure this all out. I can't hear you.
Well, I had clicked play in the Google Hangout before it started.
Okay.
And when you started, it didn't refresh. So I just went back and clicked on the link again.
Okay. So, we got you're the viewer now in. So we'll wait a little bit here. People are going to have to, get to that email that I sent out. We had originally thought about doing this Hangout as an invitation only, where you're limited to the number of people. But Brad Williams, a professional triathlete who's part of Team RWB, suggested that we do it live. And so as a result, Brad, thank you. I've spent the last couple of days trying to figure out how to use this technology. It's been beneficial, but also a challenge. Here's the thing. It's very interesting. I think they need to put the webcam on computers down here. See, right here, down at the bottom, because I look at me, and I should be looking up here at the camera. But if the camera were down here lower instead of up high, then it would look a little bit more natural. But that's a user experience thing. My wife is a UX person, so I'm encouraging her to try to convince all computer manufacturers to put the camera in a better place to make it look more natural when we're looking at the camera. So here we've got our second viewer in. So speak up if you're on there, and let's see if we can get somebody else talking. Well, we had two, now we've got one.
And will it be available afterwards?
The main reason we went with Brad's suggestion was not just to increase the potential audience size and participation size, but to also have it be so that this will go up on a Google Plus and a YouTube, and video recording. It'll be out there, well, forever, much to my embarrassment, but it will be out there for people to access later after this Hangout has concluded.
Okay. Well, with that being said, I think maybe we should just go ahead and get started.
So yeah, so what I'm going to do is, what I had said that I would do is, first of all, I do want to say up front, I am not an expert on the 70.3 course. I've raced it twice under very different conditions. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And I officiated the race last year as part of the officiating team, and so covered the course from a different vantage and gained some insights, because I was able to. We were doing loops of the course instead of just riding it straight through. So first, we said we would talk about a general review of the venue and kind of run through some important pieces on the Saturday-Sunday schedule. I'm getting something from Periscope over here.
So I'm going to start Periscope, and when I do, I'm going to have you introduce yourself.
Okay, so there's going to be a slight pause here in just a minute when the Periscope director launches Periscope and asks me to introduce myself. And then I'm going to come back, and you know what I think I'll do? I'll introduce myself to you. So, hey, Periscope, this is Coach Mark T with Team MPI. We're going to be doing a review of the 70.3 Austin course. My wife is holding this up to me as if I can actually read it from that distance. So what she told me to say was, say hi to the Periscope viewers. And please share this video by swiping right. If you have a triathlon question, send an email to me at markt@teammpi.com. That's markt@teammpi.com. If you have any triathlon question or a question specific about the 70.3 Austin course, or just a general triathlon question, feel free to send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks. So there, you may have heard me talking. Now I'll once again here, I'll introduce myself and say I'm Coach Mark Turner, Mark T at teammpi.com with Team MPI. And so tonight we're going to be doing a little bit of discussion, a little bit of overview of the Austin 70.3 course, the kind of the weekend, how it kind of plays out. So right now we're going to talk about just a general review of the venue and I'm looking over here at my notes in case you're wondering what I'm looking at. Saturday and Sunday schedule. We'll talk about some maybe some helpful hints. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the course conditions. I've been following some Facebook postings and looking at the weather. Austin had a lot of rain last weekend. There's a lot of chip seal roads. If you're not from this part of the country, you don't know what chip seal is. It's going to be an interesting experience for you to learn what chip seal is when you ride the course in Austin. Not all of the course is chip seal. A lot of it has been really well done. We rode this course back a couple of months ago, and there were significant portions that were really, really improved from years previous, very smooth. But there are still some areas of rather significant challenge where you're going to have to watch out for the chip seal and the effects that will have on your bike. We're going to talk a little bit about that later and some lessons that I've learned. And then some areas where there are going to be some relatively significant cracks. One person has ridden the course that I was following on Facebook, and they said there were some areas where there were some pretty decent washouts, but that they saw county trucks out there with asphalt filling those holes in. Hopefully that'll pack in real well. I've got one of my viewers coming in with an email. You could check that on my phone. I'd appreciate it. That's talking to my trusty assistant. And so, anyway, if it packs in good and we get some good sunshine, and we're expected to get some sunshine in this part of the country early, that should settle in well. But if we get another good washout, and some of the really changing weather reports right now are indicating we could get some pretty heavy rains in Southeast Texas on Friday and even into Saturday. So loose asphalt on the roads are something you will want to consider. Especially in those downhills if it's still raining when we're racing on Sunday. Let's see. Okay, so the venue. Well, first of all, there's a reason I'm racing it for the third time, and I'm going up for the fourth year in a row. It's a fantastic venue. Austin's a great city. The course in general, you're always going to deal with people who don't like triathletes on their roads, but in general, very, very open course. You're able to really ride hard if you want to. There are some areas where you really need to be careful. I highly recommend you get there, if you can, get there in time to drive the course and kind of think through a race strategy. There are a few railroad tracks that you have to cross. You want to make sure you cross them the way that you've trained to cross a railroad track, so you're really hitting them at a perpendicular angle and not going at them at an angle where you can catch a wheel. The rough roads we talked about earlier. One of the things that I learned is I did a couple of really long, kind of more like fun rides in training for my first 70.3, which was in fact Austin. And in both of those long rides, and those rides were in that 60-mile range, and both of those rides within the last 8 miles, my seat came loose. And it was torqued down to begin with. I have a torque wrench. I torqued it down. But the chip seal in that part of the country is just like the chip seal in Southeast Texas. And over the course of that many miles, you get a little bit of vibration. And I found that my seat post, the seat just came loose, and I'm riding in. You don't want to do that in a 70.3 when you've got to get off the bike and run a half marathon. So one of the things that I found out about was, and I am not being paid by Loctite. So setting my coffee down there real quick. But I found out about Loctite thread lock. So you want to make sure, I'm going to hold this up. I don't know if you can get a good look. One is green and one is blue. You put a little bit on the threads of those screws. And what you want to use is you want to use the blue one. It's the removable. In other words, you'll be able to still take off that seat post. It won't be as hard. You can still take off the penetrating, but you want to use the removable. But it will hold your seat post. I put that Loctite on my tri-bike before that Austin 70.3 4 years ago, and I haven't had the seat post, the seat come loose on the seat post at all since. It really has held. It just prevents that those screws from wiggling. The other thing you want to put it on is your bottle cage. Especially if you have those bottle cages, those tri-bottle cages that hang off the back of the bike. If you don't put this on there, I can tell you, as someone who has both raced the race and also officiated, there are a couple of places that are pretty well known as a great collection spot if you really want to score a pretty inexpensive X-Lab bottle cage rack, because they fall off with great regularity. And you don't want to be going out there into that first 20 miles and not have your bottle cage. So I really recommend you think about adding that to your maintenance schedule. We'll talk a little bit about maintenance in a bit. Some things you want to do. It looks like we're going to have a lot of rain on the course, potentially. And if one of the other, I'm not, once again, not a product spokesman, but I discovered this at Raleigh 70.3. This is Finish Line ceramic wet chain lube. And so you clean up the chain really, really good. You get that on there, and it really handles when you're in wet conditions, because when you're in wet conditions, especially where they've re-asphalted a lot of places, there's a lot more trash that you're going to pick up that gets thrown up into the chain and can create issues. And a good lube like this will shed that trash off instead of just collecting it like normal, regular oil will. So I really do recommend you consider something like that to throw into your maintenance schedule. Make sure you're really going over your bike. Not just that you've taken it to the bike shop, but that you've given it a good once over before you're bringing it into where you check in for T1. I take so far I've never had a mechanical in any triathlon, and while a certain amount of that is certainly I've been really lucky, a lot of that is that I go over my wheels, my tires, my valves, my inner tubes. I go over them with really carefully. I look for any kind of gash. I'd rather put a new, they say nothing new on race day, but I'd rather have a new tire than one with a gash, even if it's a slight one, because sometimes those little things get stuck into the tire itself. And even though you may have even put a new inner tube in, if you see any sign of anything on the outside of that tire, you might really seriously consider going ahead and putting a new tire on and getting it out for a few spins, but making sure that there's nothing, no significant blemish on it that could indicate something inside the tire that's going to work its way up in those first few miles. If you've ever raced long course triathlon, you know that you'll often find a lot of people on the side of the road fairly early in. We're going to talk a little bit about coming out of the swim and coming out of T1 later, to make sure I don't forget, when you get there to check your bike in on Saturday, you want to make sure that once you pull in to the area where you park up near the lake, that when you pull your bike out and you've done all your bike check and everything, that you carry your bike everywhere you go. You carry it over to T1. You don't roll it, you don't ride it in the grass, and you'll see some people doing that. And there are these things called goat thorns that are all over there, that field, and you may not even see them, but what will happen is you'll pick one up, a little tip will get up in the tire and it'll snap off. No biggie, nothing right there. You'll pump up your tire the next morning in T1, everything will seem fine. And you'll grab that bike and you'll grab it by the handlebars, you'll grab it by the seat post if that's your thing, and you'll be running out of T1, and you'll get up and you'll join the other 10 people that are standing there right outside of where the road starts, changing a tire, because in that little bit of time, you've managed to work that little bit of thorn the rest of the way through your tire and into your inner tube, and pop it goes, and you're starting off changing a tire to begin your bike leg, and you don't want to do that. So anyway, back to getting there on Friday, Friday and Saturday. So let's see, Friday, I'm looking over here at my notes. So Friday, there will be 3 athlete briefings from 1 to 5, 3 in a row. And then on Saturday, there'll be 2 there'll be 1 at 12 and 1 at 2. What I would like to really encourage you to do is no matter how many times you've done an Ironman event, whether it's a 70.3 or a full, and maybe you've gone to some of the athlete briefings and you feel like, there was a lot of stuff and I didn't get a lot. But at almost every athlete briefing, there's that one thing that's going to be conveyed to you about the race day that you will not know unless you go to the athlete briefing. There'll be something that'll be a point of emphasis, maybe from that officiating crew, and you won't know it if you don't go to that athlete briefing. And so, because I can tell you from vast experience at this, if you have a penalty issue, the first question that's going to be asked of you by the referee, if you were to inquire about your penalty, is, did you go to the athlete briefing? So if you can't say yes to that, then it's gonna end that conversation pretty quickly, because things will be covered in the athlete briefing that you will need to know and you will need to bear in mind, not just about the rules, but about the course. Changes come up, and it is the athlete's responsibility to know the course and to be on the course. So I really encourage you. Now, the lines are pretty simple on Friday. So if you're able to come in on Friday and get checked in, the earlier are, the better the line will be. Once again, the arena is just an incredible place to finish a triathlon, but it's a nice a venue for you to gather for getting ready for this event. Let's see, Saturday, Sunday, make sure so once again, make sure you bring your USAT card, your driver's license, you're ready to check in, fill out your forms, wander around the expo a little bit on Friday. And then Saturday, the bike check-in starts at 10. Typically, they open the parking about 9. That's something that would be covered at the athlete briefing on Friday, so you'd know that for sure. In the past, while there is no organized swim on Saturday, many people do swim on Saturday and early in the morning and get a little bit of a practice swim in. Weather's a little iffy once again this year. I just wrote an article for our Team MPI newsletter where I talked a little bit about the reality that we all watch the weather coming in. We all watch the weather and we wonder, is it going to rain? Is it going to be cold? So day before yesterday, I looked at the weather for Austin, the prediction, and it was going to be 77, full sun, low in the upper 40s, nice and crisp to start out, but the water temperature in the 70s, so not bad at all. Sound like a great race day. Today, yesterday checked the weather, and we have a 60% chance of rain on Sunday now, and a high of 69, and it's kind of been bouncing all over the place. So as you get prepared in terms of course conditions weather-wise for Austin, if you have a long sleeve wetsuit, bring it. If you have a short sleeve wetsuit, I'd tell you to bring it. Even though it's very unlikely that it would be a non-wetsuit swim, if you have a skin suit, I'd still bring it, because you just don't know what's going to happen with the weather here. Make sure you have, if cold hands are a problem for you, bring gloves, because if it turns real cold, they'll sell out. I tell you that from experience, my first one. Bring that long sleeve shirt that if you're not going to be comfortable on the bike, if you're going to be burning up too many calories, just staying warm with the upper body on the bike, and you're going to need something on the upper body, bring that to have as an option when the conditions, if they do remain the same and it's going to be cold and wet and rainy. Just bring all those things that you think, I don't know if I really should bring this, go ahead and bring them. and then sort it all out as you set up your transition bags before you drop them off on Saturday. So, okay, let's, yeah, check-in and bike check-in is required at this event on Saturday. You will have to check your bike in and in your spot, and it's a clean transition. And what I would also then tell you about the clean transition, one of the things they're really going to harp on to you, and it's important that they do this, to be fair. They're going to tell you, if you bring a bike pump and it doesn't fit in that bag, we're not going to guarantee you're going to get it back. So now one thing you have to understand is you arrive in the morning of race morning at the arena, you get on buses. It's extremely well organized. I mean, it's very seamless. You get on that bus, you'll be up at T1 before you know it. You'll be at body marking. You'll be over at your bike. Unless if you have a bike pump that you kind of want to get back, but if you didn't, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I'm going to tell you, bring it and put it in your bag, in your morning clothes bag. Put it in the, cinch it up real good. Maybe tie the string around the handle or around it so it's really connected to your bag, and throw that in the morning clothes bag. Simply because I tell you, when you go in at the end of the race, you're going to see, 30 or 40 bike pumps with morning clothes bags back up at the arena, where they bring your morning clothes bag and your bike gear bag for you to pick up after the end of the race. If you're one of those people like me, I want to know I have my pump. I want to know it works well on my valve stems. I'm comfortable with it. I don't want to blow up an inner tube, right before the race starts. And so I will be doing that for the first time this year. I'll be going ahead and bringing my own pump and not trying to then jump back on the bus and ride all the way back over to my car, put it back in, and then come back. I used to have a Sherpa, but she abandoned me, and she's now one of the officiating crew, and so she can't actually handle the bike pump for me and take care of some of those things she used to be able to take care of for me. That's one thing that I would say about the morning is that bring some. I would also, if you don't have some cheap flip-flops, I'd get some cheap flip-flops. I'd put some cheap socks if it's cold that morning, to keep the feet warm. You don't want to just start out super miserable. If you've got a long sleeve shirt that you don't mind sacrificing, that you hang over the banner there at the end where everybody else is going to put their flip-flops to stay a little bit warm prior to the swim start, I would recommend you do that as well. So I said I'd also talk a little bit about pre and post race eats. And basically what I'm going to tell you is there's a couple places, a couple locations for this in Austin. It's a brick oven pizza. I'm not a huge jump on a bunch of carbs right before a race, but I will top off my glycogen levels. And so we'll go and we'll eat the bigger carb meal on Friday night. After we've done all the check-in and everything, we'll go find a place that's going to serve pizza. We like Brick Oven. Once again, not getting paid by them. They haven't given me food poisoning yet, so I'm staying with them. So we'll have a kind of a medium protein, medium carb kind of meal with a little bit of roughage, and I'll do that on Friday evening. A little bit of a later meal, and then I'm going to hit the rack, get to sleep because I've got an early day the next day. Then the day before, on that Saturday morning, I'm going to have a really, really solid breakfast. And then I'm going to have a little bit of a later lunch. I can tell you my strategy for this year will be when we're on Friday night at Brick Oven, we're going to go ahead and order a couple of cold subs. We're going to take them out to the race site. I'm going to after I check in my bike, do a little practice swim, do a little bit of riding. I'm going to ride my bike, weather permitting. After I swim, I'm going to come back. I'm bringing my old trainer. This is a tip I picked up from a pro in my first race. Rather than getting out on the roads and risk picking up something in my tire, I'm going to have my trainer wheel. I'm going to put it on my bike, and I'm going to put it on the trainer, and I'm going to ride for about 20 minutes just to warm the legs up, just kind of get that feel of transition from swim to bike. And then I'm going to go for a short 20-minute run. So that's kind of the plan for that day. In terms of how I'm going to set that up. So, and then after that, I'm going to have that kind of sandwichy kind of meal, a little bit of meat, a little bit of carbohydrates, but not going overboard. I'm not trying to load up the bolus with a bunch of food. I think a lot of the gastric distress that athletes face, when they're in these long course events, is really overeating in the first few days before the race, thinking that they've got to load these massive amounts of carbohydrates. You just want to keep the glycogen levels topped off. And I think it's much more better for athletes to be a little bit more fat adaptive, so they can run off surface glycogen, keeping their paces in that aerobic level so that they can burn into their fat stores, which are dense in energy. So then at dinner for my supper, I'll have a little, on the night before the race, I'll eat pretty early. I'll have probably some leftovers but not a lot, from eating at maybe a piece of pizza, but not a lot of it, not a heavy cheese thing. I don't want to have a lot of that kind of stuff in the food, and that's why I'm careful about the restaurants when I'm traveling that I pick to eat. Post race, that's when I let it a little bit hang out. Okay, so my place is the Schultz Beer Garden. It's right down next to the UT campus. I'm going to go there. I'm going to have a couple of beers. I'm going to have some of their smoked hot wings and a little bit of barbecue. I won't, massively stuff myself, but I will have that. Now the food, post-race food at Ludicky, and once again, back to the site. Awesome site. I don't know how many of you who are participating in this hangout have ever looked into how the finish is, but the way the finish is, after the third loop of your run, you're going to run through a little bit of a different chute, and you're going to run straight in to the arena, and family, friends, spectators are all going to be up in this arena, sitting on the sides, all cheering for you. And it is a really, really cool finish. And then as you come back around, you'll come into the food area. They always have really good food, really good drinks. This year, if you're a beer drinker, the beer post-race is Omission, which is gluten-free, which I've not tried, but I have talked to a couple of people, and they say it's really, really good. So I'm looking forward to maybe having a sip or two of that post-race myself. So back to a little bit about course conditions. The big thing in terms of, other than what we've already talked about, the rough roads that you will encounter from time to time, and there are some areas, once again, why it's important for you to drive this course if at all possible. There's a couple of areas where you're going to be coming downhill, and then at the bottom of that downhill, you're going to have to brake pretty hard because you're going to have a hard right or a hard left turn and a climb immediately. So really make sure you're in those right gears, because every year I see people with drop chains who've cross-chained as they've tried to make that next turn. They haven't gotten in the right gear. You're going to have to brake anyway, so you don't need to be in that hardest gear really flying down those hills, because you're going to have to brake and make that hard right turn, and kind of have in your mind where those are will be really, really helpful for you to avoid a drop chain. The big wind effect in Austin, there are hills, and if you didn't train for hills, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. So you have to use a little bit of common sense if you haven't trained in the hills enough, and kind of pace yourself going up them. But if we do get the winds that are possible in Austin, one of the big wind effects is if it's dry and we're clean and we're just rolling down those hills, sometimes the bottoms, which are usually these relatively deep creek beds, you can get a really serious crosswind effect. And so you really need to make sure you're in control when you get down to the bottom of those hills. So as you scoop up, and you hit the bottom and you're getting ready to scoop up, you're not shaking and wobbling all over the place. Let's see. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about walking through the legs and the transitions. We've talked a little bit about the morning bag and whether you want to make the decision to bring a pump that you may or may not get back. It's pretty likely you will, but you always want to think, if you put it in there and they're not promising to get it back, that you might not. So when you get there, I always tell people, get there early. You've invested a lot of hours in this, and trying to be like cutting the times really close on the day of the race after you've invested all this time into preparing for the race is just really not a wise decision. Get there early. Get there when people are a little bit less rushed, and you will be a little bit less rushed. Get your stuff out of the car, go down. If you haven't checked in your run bag, which is, remember, T2 is in a different location. So just to reiterate that. So there's T1 is going to be up at the lake. T2 is going to be over next to the arena. So all of your run stuff is going to be in your run bag. It's going to be hanging at the place where you're going to rack your bike when you finish the bike leg. And so if you haven't checked that in, or you did and you need to make, maybe you didn't want to leave fluids or some of your food out there overnight, you want to go in before you get on the bus and right over to T1, you want to check that out. And so then you go over, get your gear set up at T1. Remember, when you come out of the swim, everything that you want to get back needs to go into that bike gear bag. It needs to go in. So your morning gear is in the box you put in before you went into the swim. Anything else that you don't have over there set up in T1, you don't expect to get back, like flip-flops or a long sleeve shirt or a towel that you're may wrap your around your head to stay warm. Any of those things. So you get out there to swim, and if this is your first long course, so your first 70.3 distance, and swim was maybe your challenge. If you've done your training somewhere around about the 600-yard mark, what's going to suddenly occur to you is the swim's going to probably be the easiest part of the whole day, and that's okay. Just settle in, finish out your swim, get out of the water, stay calm. Use the wetsuit strippers, get that wetsuit, head on up to your bike. The thing about T1 and T2 is to remain calm. Your heart rate is going to start wanting to spike. So try to remain as calm as possible. Be real steady, be deliberate. Be in a hurry, but don't be in a rush. Don't rush yourself. Just, be quick. Once again, now you've inflated your pump, your tires before you went out for the swim. Now grab your bike, carry it out. Carry it out. If it's as muddy as it's expected to be, and if we're not allowed to put our shoes on the pedals, carry your shoes. I don't know how many times I've seen people whacking their shoes for 5 or 10 minutes trying to get the mud out of them. It's a little bit of time that it's going to take you to carry them in the left hand and have your bike on your right shoulder and get out. It's going to save you time when you get out there. So plan to do that. Then get out on the bike. Make sure you're keeping a nice steady pace. Roll through your bike leg. Once again, some chip seal areas. Be careful. If you haven't practiced taking a bottle from somebody in the aid stations, you might want to go ahead and think about stopping. You finish up the bike, and then you go to T2. T2, as you come in and finish up your bike, and you get your bike up to your spot, and you start undoing all your bag and start getting your shoes on and all of that. I always tell people it's really helpful if you've hydrated enough that you might need to hit the porta-john. I don't believe in overhydration. I don't want you to have hyponatremia, but at the same time, if you've hydrated and fueled so that you kind of have the urge to go before you head out on that run. Remember, this counsel for age groupers, and so that if you have to hit the porta-john, that's not necessarily a bad thing before you start out on the run. And once again, the run is a 3-loop course. You're going to go kind of out, and then you're going to head down on part of what you came out on the bike. When you first came out on the bike, you're going to head up, you're going to go down a little slight slope, as you see when you get there. Then you're going to have a couple of hills. Every hill you're going to do, obviously, 3 times. So try to pace yourself on the run. So with the conditions that we're going to have, I always tell people, run as much as you can, but at a pace that's sustainable, and walk through all the aid stations. Even if it's going to be a relatively cool day, make sure that you've got salt tablets so that you're taking those in to make sure your electrolyte levels and your salt levels are at a sustainable level throughout the event. Really, that's about it for a quick rundown of the 70.3 course. There's probably a lot of things that I could talk about. So the thing now is let me open it up if there are any questions.
Can you tell us a little bit about the fans watching the run?
That is a really, one of the really cool things about Austin is that as you come out and as you make your turns back in, kind of there's this little gate before you're on that road where the bikes go out and you're going to run on back up to where the lake is for the run course. There are tons of fans. Lots of people come out. They line both sides of the courts. They set up tents. Some of them are, set up displays of food. They're eating. A lot of imaginative costumes. Typically, this race is just before Halloween, so there are a lot of costumes. Now that we're a little bit past Halloween, there'll probably, since it's Austin, be a lot of costumes. So a lot of people very into cheering on the athletes, which can be really super encouraging, especially as you're making that last go out for your third loop. Any other questions?
None coming from Periscope. We do have a viewer, Gianni, from Periscope.
Hey, Gianni. We've got a Periscope viewer. I'm saying hello to Gianni. So if Gianni has any questions about 70.3 Austin, feel free to shoot it our way.
What are your certifications as a coach?
Oh, okay. So, once again, I don't set myself up as an expert on the 70.3 Austin course, but from a coaching perspective, my certifications are I'm a USAT level 1 coach. I'm a USMS level 1 and level 2 coach, and I am one of the new Ironman University Ironman coach, certified coach coaches. And so I've done a lot of study in this area. I coach also career performance with TR4U coaching, but I am currently a coach with Team MPI. The head coaches are Mark Sortino and John Murray, and it's my great honor to be a part of that team. A bunch of incredible coaches. If you are looking at this and you're thinking, I'd like to get some, ongoing information about triathlon, and tidbits on training, racing, all of that, I encourage you to go to the Team MPI website and sign up for our newsletter. Absolutely free to subscribe to the newsletter. And every week you'll get a really chock full of interesting information newsletter delivered to your mailbox. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I think we'll end our experiment with Periscope, and we will end our first run at a live Google Hangout. Right now, I want to thank everybody that tuned in, and I also want to thank everybody that will look at this video later on YouTube. I'd be happy for you to send me any comments, any suggestions, any recommendations on how this kind of venue for imparting information could be improved. Once again, this is my first time at this, doing a Google Hangout that's live. I would really treasure your input as a means to improve our ability to deliver these in a way that would be the most informative and helpful to the triathletes in our wonderful triathlon community. So thank you all, and good night. Thanks.